Hey, James here, and I'm with Adam, and we had a special question from Nikki Hudson in our YouTube comments. He asked us, how does consolidation work?
That's when you move like 3 inches. Let's explain it. When you're playing Warhammer 40,000 9th edition, the close combat rules are often quite confusing for beginners. There's essentially multiple phases. You have the charge phase, and then you have the fight phase. And in the charge phase, you're going to move a number of inches based on what you roll on 2 dice. But then afterwards, you have the fight phase. And actually in the fight phase, there is an additional up to 6 inches of movement for a model to take. And half of that is called a pile-in, and the other half is called a consolidation. Essentially, if I've got a model and he's about to fight one of your models, my model at the start of close combat, after I've charged at the beginning of the fight phase, has a 3-inch movement that they can make to bring me closer to the closest enemy model. But here's what's interesting about that. If I'm already touching your model, I'm not allowed to take that move. I am considered to be piling in whether I do it or not. So at the beginning of the fight phase, those first 3-inch movement that you take is called a pile-in. And it just lets you get more models that are at the back of the unit into close combat. A model can fight if it's within ½ inch of an enemy model, or within ½ inches of a model within your unit that's within ½ inch of an enemy model. So that 3 inches is really important, because if I've essentially got one model next to yours, but I can fit 3 more models around my model, I've got 4 models hitting you. So that initial pile-in is absolutely massive, but you can be smart with it. For example, if your model is sitting on an objective and I'm a little bit too far away, providing I end up closer to your model than I was at the start of the fight phase, then I'm allowed to make that movement even if it brings me closer to the objective, which allows me to score it on my next turn. Now this is huge because the fight phase happens in both my turn and your turn. So I can take that 3-inch movement at the start of close combat in your turn, providing I'm not already touching your model. And this can be huge in terms of making sure my model is next to an objective, remembering that in 9th edition, you score at the start of your own turn on objectives. So I take the movement in your turn and then go back to my turn. But here's where James is saying, okay, but 3 inches might not get the job done. Well, guess what, James? I've got a full 6 inches coming your way. Because at the end of close combat, after I finish making all my attacks, I have a 3-inch consolidation. And that is another 3-inch movement I can use, but I have to end up closer to the nearest enemy model. And all you have to do is remember, you almost never want to be actually touching a model. You want to be within ½ inch of it, and then you want to use micro fragments of ½ inch to get you closer and closer to where you actually want to be on the board. And in doing so, you can do some really cool micro tactical maneuvers. And I guarantee you, if you enter some big tournaments, everybody's going to be making these moves.
Yeah. Wow.
Word of warning, you pull this off against a beginner and you're gonna have some very upset beginners. So I typically try not to use these rules unless I'm playing somebody for keeps. If me and Eve are going head to head, or if I'm beating you up, then I'm gonna use every single one of these rules. But most of the time when I'm playing with a beginner, I kind of just be like, they're just getting clipped together and smash them up and go like that. So this is the basics of how pile-ins and consolidations work. Just remember, any model that moves must end up closer to the nearest enemy model. But beyond that, nothing says it has to be in a straight line, or nothing says that you have to end up on the same side of the miniature. So there's lots of cool things you can do with it, and that's how they work.
Cool. Yeah, awesome. Thanks. And guys, if you have any other questions you want us to answer, feel free to leave a comment down below, and I'll go through them and we'll answer them for you.
Thanks ever so much for watching. See you in the next video.